they're being used strategically and, effectively.
Right.
Okay. Now, I know we've, talked a lot about the theory behind cabinet committees and JOMS, but let's bring it back to, the UPSC exam.
Yeah.
How can understanding these groups help those preparing for the exam,
Yeah.
Really nail those polity questions?
That's a great question. And it's something a lot of people, taking the exam struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
The key is to not just memorize things, but to really understand how these groups work within the whole, political system.
So it's not just about knowing, what they're called and who's in them, but understanding their impact in the real world.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you might get a question on the exam asking you to analyze how effective GEMS have been at tackling, complex policy issues.
Okay.
So you would need to be able to discuss both sides of the argument, highlighting how those focused discussions and bringing in, specific expertise can be helpful, but also acknowledging the concerns about, delays, lack of transparency, and the potential for overlap between different groups.
Right. So it's about showing a nuanced understanding of the topic, not just, spitting back facts.
Right.
Classic UPSC. Mm-hmm. But how can people connect this, theoretical knowledge to current affairs?
Right.
Which is, a big part of the exam.
Yeah, that's where it's really important to stay updated on what's happening in the news and with policies.
Right.
Look out for any news about cabinet committees or GEMS, especially anything related to, current policy debates.
Yeah.
Those real-world examples can help you show that you understand the concepts and how they actually play out.
So it's like putting together a puzzle. You have the theoretical framework from the textbooks, and then you use what's going on in the news to see how it all actually works in the real world.
Exactly.
It makes it so much more, engaging and relevant.
For sure. And that's what's so great about studying Indian polity. It's not just some static subject. It's a living, breathing system that's always changing.
It's like you get to see, behind the scenes how policies are actually made, who's pulling the strings and what their motives might be.
Right.
That kind of knowledge is not just good for, acing the UPSC exam.
Right.
It's helpful for anyone who wants to really understand and, participate in how the country's run.
Absolutely. Knowing how decisions are made, who has influence and how you can be a part of the process is so important for a healthy democracy.
But for our listeners who are, specifically prepping for the UPSC, do you have any advice on how they can really, master this topic? Because it seems like there's a lot to take in.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we've given you a good starting point here.
Mm-hmm.
The key is to really dig deeper. Don't just stop at memorizing, what these committees and groups are called and what they do on paper.
Right.
Go back and look at their history, see how their roles have changed over time, and understand the context of, how they operate.
So for example, instead of just knowing that, the Political Affairs Committee exists,
right,
you should actually research, the big decisions they've made, how they've influenced major policies, and how their role has evolved.
Exactly. Look into, specific times when the committee played a really important part, maybe during like a national crisis or when there was a big policy change. Those real world examples will make the concepts so much clearer.
Okay, so historical analysis is key.
Yeah.
And what about those informal UMs? They seem a little trickier since there's no, official record of them.
Yeah.
How can people, stay up to date on what they're doing?
Well, that's where you really have to use your analytical skills. Keep a close eye on news reports and, announcements about policies, and try to connect the dots between decisions and the possible influence of these informal JOMs. Who are the main players involved? Are there any patterns you notice in how they operate?
It's like being a detective trying to, figure out these hidden networks of power and influence.
Exactly. And that's what makes studying Indian polity so interesting.
Yeah.
It's not just a dry subject. It's this dynamic field where you have power, influence, and decision-making all coming together. And understanding those subtle things, those behind-the-scenes workings, can really give you a leg up on the UPSC exam.
It's like having, a secret decoder ring for understanding Indian politics.
Right.
You can see past what's on the surface and grasp, the deeper forces at play.
Yeah.
But as you said, this knowledge isn't just for aspiring bureaucrats. It's important for anyone who wants to be an informed and active citizen.
Absolutely. Understanding how decisions are made, who's influencing them, and how you can get involved is essential for a strong democracy. So whether you're studying for the UPSC or just, trying to make sense of the political world, remember that knowledge is power.
So to all our listeners out there, especially those of you burning the midnight oil for the UPSC, keep digging deeper, keep asking questions, and keep connecting those dots. This journey of understanding how power works in India isn't just about, passing an exam. It's about becoming an informed and active participant in shaping the future of your country. Thanks for joining us.